So I want to welcome everybody to this week's Topics in Tech, sponsored by the CIS Sandbox in honor of our 10th anniversary on campus. We have two speakers today, Omar Almadani and Viraj Ayachet. And Omar is going to go first. So this is my chance to introduce Omar. And Omar was at Bentley until about 2011, I think, right? Is that right?
2014.
So 2014. Well, you were one of the first students who I hired to work in the CIS Sandbox. So this is Omar's great claim to fame. When we opened up the CIS Sandbox in 2011, we put a video camera in the front of the, hanging on the ceiling. And I said to Omar, do something with all these pictures. And so Omar created this video for us. So there you go. I don't remember how many views this thing actually got on YouTube, but it was our first viral video in the CIS Sandbox, and let's see. So congratulations for doing that. Let's begin by asking everybody who's here to introduce themselves and tell us where you're from and what class you're in, or what you're hoping to learn today, and then we'll get started. We'll start with Ethan.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Ethan Davis. I'm from Hanover, Massachusetts, and I'm a freshman currently, and I'm taking IT 101, so we got to sit in one of these presentations.
So you picked a good day to come, so thank you for being here. Emily Williams is at Bentley's Alumni Office. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone, in the Office of Alumni and Family Engagement. So thank you, Viraj. Thank you, Omar, for espousing all of your alumni knowledge to the students and to me.
Cool, we're glad you're here. Fung.
Hi, everyone. I am a graduate student. I'm in a Master Business Analytic program. So just come in and see what we have today.
Thanks for being here. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Professor. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl, and I'm a senior student majoring in CIS, and I'm here today. I just want to know how it is like to work at Big Four and also working at a software company.
Awesome. And we have three guests. Jay's iPhone Plus.
Hi, this is Jay from Dars.
Thank you. I know you work with Omar, and he stacked the crowd.
Yeah, I'm working with Omar, so I just want to see what's going on.
Thank you.
Just listen.
And you're joining us from Kuwait also?
Yeah, I'm in Kuwait.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Hello, Victor.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Victor, and I'm a graduate student in at Bentley. I'm studying business analytics. It's actually for my graduate program, I started coding live, so I'm just here to learn and expand my knowledge.
How'd you find out about this?
I got an email, and I just decided to click on join the Zoom.
Thank you. That was for me. I'm glad that you came.
Thank you.
And please join us again next week as well. And Noor, welcome to you as well. I know you're joining us from Kuwait as well.
Thank you, Mark. I guess I'll go ahead and jump in.
Okay, Omar, it's all yours. Thank you and welcome. Welcome back. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Please let me know if you guys can see my screen. I guess there's no objection, so we'll go again. So I'm Omar Almadani. I'm a double Falcon. I actually graduated with a undergrad degree, Bachelor's of Science in Computer Information Systems. I also double minored in finance and mathematics. And then I continued my studies at Bentley and I did the dual MBA program. So I got an MBA and I got a Master's of Science in IT. After joining the workforce, during that time, I did work on a startup within the oil and gas industry. Believe it or not, it's really hard to get into that. That was working concurrently while I was doing my studies, so not a lot of losses there. After that, I joined the VC, and more or less what I was doing was I was analyzing investment opportunities within the tech industry. After that, I joined Al-Ghanim Industries, which is one of the biggest conglomerates in the region. And I joined their central IT department as their IT change manager. So part of my responsibilities there was to focus on making sure all IT changes, and when we mean changes is if there's going to be any infrastructure change in terms of changing a hard disk or going through procedures as failbacks and failovers, I would oversee that. But in addition to that, I was acting somewhat of a project manager for SAP changes, software changes. So some of you might have heard of SAP, monster of an application to deal with. It's an ERP system. And any changes or requests from the business would come through me and I'd be filtering them. And I would suggest, okay, do we go part of them or not? And I was part of a committee in which would decide yes or no. So one of the biggest changes and requests that came along was they wanted to change the fiscal year of one of their businesses. And I was asked to be on board for the impact analysis. And as part of communicating with the vendor, communicating with the developers, and looking at what the best practices, the suggestion was against it. And this was communicated to the CFO directly. During that time, I also joined a startup in fintech, and I was trying to juggle both the corporate life and the startup life, where I joined Next Payments. So it was early for their time. It was an e-wallet, more or less, and this was back in 2015. So wasn't that popular, and eventually died out. During that time, I've also was asked if I was interested to fast track my career to become the business solution manager of e-commerce of Al-Ghanim Industries. So think about it becoming the tech project lead for Best Buy. So it was pretty much on that scale. At that time, they were having a lot of issues. And I'm like, all right, sure. If I do go ahead with that and I succeed, perfect. If not, it's the beginning of my career. I think I'll be able to press the reset button. Thankfully, I was able to hire a full team. The sinking Titanic became a floating ship, and all went well. We were actually seeing around 40% increase in sales year on year. Eventually, I met Noor, our CEO, and she founded a company, an edtech company, and we engaged in discussions. And then a year later, I joined as their CTO. So this is what I've been dabbling around with for the past 4 years. And it's been a very interesting journey, and I'll get into it, into what the products we have and what we've been doing over the past 4 years in a bit. But first, I'd like to discuss about, all right, what do I do as a CTO? So in short, everything, but to be a little bit more specific, some of my responsibilities are setting what the tech strategy is. So when we're looking at tech, what programming languages or what development stack are we planning? Are we gonna offshore? Are we gonna nearshore? Do we plan on hiring our in-house team? So all that kind of strategy, this is part of my responsibilities. Also, I act as a portfolio/project manager for our projects, and I need to make sure that our products and applications are constantly being updated. When we come up with a new idea that requires development, I need to make sure, all right, what is the project plan for it? When will we have the deliverables and so on? And at the end of the day, it's me who needs to ensure that we deliver by the date that we promise. In addition to that, I'm responsible to approving any system designs, architecture, infrastructure designs. So part of this ties back into the strategy. My strategy is to utilize the cloud. So how is our infrastructure going to look? What services are we going to be using from the cloud? When we come and look at the development, what's the structure of the database? So all of this falls under my responsibilities. And what I need to focus on is how could I make sure whatever we build today is scalable for the tomorrow. And I need to have a long-term vision, and I also have to be able to look at the nitty-gritty stuff as well as take a step back and look at the bigger picture. In addition to that, I also have to manage the tech budget. As you know, with anything that you're working or any company, you do have a budget you cannot exceed. So that's part of my responsibilities. If I overspend, I will be getting a call asking me why have I overspent. I also implement processes. So part of my responsibilities is to make sure that our development is going as smoothly as possible. There's no bugs in the system, or if there's any bugs, that we're resolving them in a timely fashion. So I do implement processes, and for the grad students or people who are a little bit more experienced, and you do follow Agile, or anyone who've heard about Agile, but in my professional opinion, Agile alone doesn't work. You need to run a modified version of Agile to fit into your culture and fit into how you are working and what or who your team consists of. Also, I act as a CIO. The reason I included the CIO over here to help differentiate when we're talking about the T or the I, what's more or less the difference? From company to company, it does differ. However, in a technology or a software development company where we're focusing on product, technology is focusing on that product, on ensuring the application is up to date, or the development of the application that would be sold or used internally or externally. The I, or the Chief Information Officer, is more responsible about the internal infrastructure of your telephony system. Which email server are we going to use? Are we going to use Microsoft Exchange, or do we go to G Suite? How do we go with Macs, or do we go with Windows computers, and so on? We don't have a CIO, so I do assume those responsibilities as well. A little bit about Dars and what our products are. Don't worry, you don't really need to read the code. It's part of another slide. So there's a little bit about Dars. Our vision is to be the premium provider of the 21st century K-12 learning solution to ensure the academic and professional success of our clients. So we have several offices. Our main office is in Kuwait. We have offices in Jordan, Egypt, KSA, and India. Our Egypt and Jordan offices, we're running operations from. Our KSA office is meant for sales, and our India office is where the tech team resides. We have over 120 employees, and we're currently operating in over 25 countries. Most of the countries are within the MENA region. We do have some clients in the United States, and we have some clients as far east as in Malaysia and Indonesia. So our first vertice is content creation. So we are creating content or content and video regarding the curriculums in the Arab world. So as I mentioned, we're an edtech company, so we are focusing about education. If you go online and you search for English content, it's abundant, but there's not enough content for the Arab-speaking world. And this is where our niche is, and this is where we're focusing on. In addition to this, Mark, you saw this last year in Bet Show, is we have a student application called the Risli, where we support multiple services. The most prevalent service is tutoring on demand. The idea was, and this is how we initially started, the idea was you take a picture of your question, and within 60 seconds or less, I'll connect you with a tutor on the spot. It opens up a chat and you could have a conversation with the tutor. We then started to expand into content, and we mapped out the curriculum and we created something we called the learning path. The idea of the learning path is your learning path is videos and questions that are correlated directly with the textbook. We then launched practice exams and whatnot. Then we decided to create a parent application. So one of the things we realized from the business is our end customer or end consumer is the student, but the person with the purchasing power is the parent. So how do I empower the parent to make the purchase on behalf of the student, number one? And number two, how do I show the parent the value add for the students that they are receiving, the students are receiving? So we created somewhat of an application. We created an application that's somewhat of a feed, activity feed. So that shows the parent the progress of the student, what has he been doing, and somewhat of a feedback loop where a parent could give their students or their child a good job or a pat on the back. We then introduced our teacher application, which we launched exactly a year ago. And what that included is the ability to create classroom, and it was a communication tool between teachers and students. And again, the idea was, the idea behind the teacher application is how do I onboard students at a faster rate without having to pay high marketing costs, is to provide a tool for the teachers where the teachers have direct access to the students, asking the students to download the application. Last year, after COVID hit, one of the things that we've developed and turned around really fast was the ability to have a live virtual classroom. So instead of going on to Zoom, where there's a link and anyone can join, the teacher could start a classroom with one click. And on top of that, we started to build additional content for teachers where they could add or mention part of our library to communicate with the children or the students. Our students application actually won an award last year, one of the best digital applications, educational applications in the region. So we won first place, and we were also shortlisted for another award in the UK for Digital Educational Award. Over the past year, we have been working on another application, called Bounce. So the idea is nurseries do not have a proper management system or a system they could manage or communicate with the parents. So what we realized is teachers are using, or nurseries are using, several applications that do not provide proper privacy and proper security. So we decided to build one. So parents were using WhatsApp to share, to chat with parents. Nurseries were using Instagram to post pictures of the children, and they were having issues collecting money. So what we decided to do is to create an application that encompasses all of that. We took away the need to have filing cabinets to store data or store information about the student, and we've digitized that. We've also introduced the ability to take a picture of a student or upload a video and tag the individual student where only that student's parents will be able to see it. So we're hitting privacy, the privacy nail on the head. We've also provided the ability to send out payments, online payment methods. So it's a small system that allows nurseries to start doing collections. And that being said, either parent could pay, and what we're at, the value we're adding to the nursery is the nurseries are getting paid faster as opposed to having to wait for the parents to come directly into the nursery to pay. Now this, we've started to develop it before COVID. This was released actually in August. And due to COVID, we've also decided to include our live virtual classroom feature directly into it. We have nurseries actually operating where nurseries are actually closed in Kuwait. We have a nursery that is operating fully online through our application. As we like to keep busy, we've also created another application within the past year. And believe it or not, this was launched on February 15th as a one-stop shop learning platform. And the idea is, how do we take what we've built in Bounce and take it to the next level and have it focus, more focused for primary school, for grades 1 through grades 12 and probably smaller universities. So very similar concepts that has been implemented previously, but with a cleaner user interface or a cleaner or a more useful user interface for that customer or that consumer. And again, having the school administration all in one place. And our key idea is, how do we simplify everything for our end consumer? So that's it about the products. I'd like to talk a little bit about the software development cycle. How do we make this happen? So anyone who's taken a couple of IT classes, I'm sure you've seen the SDLC, or we keep on talking about the software development lifecycle. The idea of it is you plan, you analyze, you design it, you develop it, you test it, and then you maintain it. Now this, from a concept, this is the core concept of how you develop anything. We use the agile methodology, which is exactly that, but it looks something like this, where you start off with creating your user stories, or you start off with your vision. This is what we want to develop. And then you start off writing your user stories or what your requirements are, and then you add it into your backlog. Now, during this phase here, we're also analyzing and we're designing, and then we develop in 2-week sprints. So some people do it 2, and you could go and extend up to 4 weeks. I find it most useful to develop in 4-week sprints. At the end of 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, you'd have some type of application or something that is useful. So it's something that you could always show the business, and then this process keeps on going on and on in a non-stop fashion. It's very similar to a factory, but a little bit more interesting. So a little bit about the team. So the tech team, we have a tech lead, we have an architect, we have a backend developer, we have a front-end developer, mobile developers, QA engineers, developer, DevOps, a business analyst, and a Scrum Master. So this group of people are in charge of actually doing the development as part of the SDLC. And then we have a product team. So we have product owners or managers, and we have UX designers. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I did want to talk a little bit about the product owner role or the product manager role, because you don't necessarily have to be a developer. If you're studying computer information systems, you don't have to be a developer to be successful. There are many other uses of that degree. And believe it or not, in my professional career, other than the startups I've worked on, I've only written a couple lines of code when I wanted to prove a point to some of the developers. Other than that, it's not part of my major job description, let's call it. But what a product owner does is helps set out what the vision is, and they're in the center of it, where they do communicate between the business and the customer and the tech team in order of what to create. So when a developer comes to write any piece of code, they are a magician and they do start with a white piece of paper, but they require some type of direction. The main person who's in charge of that is the product owner. The product owner engages in market research, customer research, researching best practices, communicating with customers, communicating with what the business requirement or business end goal is, to come up and to put together what the requirements are. And with the tech team, he coordinates, and the discussion happens in terms of, all right, this is what we want to do. And the tech team then develops it or takes care of it. So the product owner is more concerned about what are we going to develop. The tech or the engineering team is responsible for answering the question of how are we going to develop it. And two of our junior product owners are actually MIS graduates, so similar to CIS graduates from different universities. And we've been grooming them for that role, and they've been doing really, really well over the past year since we've shifted them towards that role. So that's enough talking from my side. I feel like I've been talking a lot. My last words are stay curious. And if you guys have any questions, I'm open to any questions.
Omar, thank you. Let's take a couple minutes and go for questions, offer or comments for Omar.
Hey Omar, this is Viraj. I have a quick question. Pretty interesting journey you have over there, and I think one of the things that intrigues me the most is with COVID and everything, right? Like, and I know you briefly touched on these topics when you talked, but from an infrastructure level, like what was like some of the biggest changes that you saw? Like, did you have to move a lot of your like on-premise stuff to cloud, or did you have to like move your offices, and like how did you tackle basically like the whole COVID situation from a CIO or a CTO perspective?
So so probably the only thing I really had to do was bring my monitor home. So my development team is already offshore. So with that being said, there isn't much of an issue there. And I do not have anything on premise other than the printers. So I would like to say that we have been ready for COVID. And especially that we are a company where we try to keep that culture in terms of, keeping our employees happy and making sure, yes, you could actually work from anywhere. And the only desktops we have are Macs for the designer, and our designer has another Mac at home, so he could also work from there.
Got it. So any major challenges that you particularly saw as a part of this like almost unplanned shift?
So the speed of development of which we needed to do stuff. So last year I was in Dubai for a trade show, for an EdTech show. And what happened was COVID hit Kuwait. And I remember myself being in the cab on an international call with the team in Kuwait and the team in India, discussing, okay, how are we going to react to this? And what we came up with is something we call Dars Mubashir. So Mubashir is live. And we communicated with teachers to come and pre-record material. And then we were going to, and then we created a segment in the application for people to watch this as a live TV, if you would. So this was discussed, in the cab ride to the airport. I approved the design, the architectural design. Development team started. I arrived to Kuwait on Friday night. Sunday morning, we submitted to Apple to release the application. So it's certainly at the speed of which we had to react to certain things. We did work with the government. We did present to the government, to the Ministry of Education here. We did actually work with one of the government or a subsidiary that works with the government, where they put out an RFP, and they requested one item. Part of the RFP, they had one item which we did not check that box, and submission of for proposals was within 2 weeks. So I had to make sure that we do check that box before we submit that proposal. So I would say the speed of development and the speed of which the turnaround time of your development velocity.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Welcome.
Omar outlined a bunch of different roles in a company like the software company where he works. I'm curious for the students who are joining us, if you see yourselves in any of them more than others. Cheryl, what do you think? Could you envision yourself, in which of those roles might you envision yourself working?
I guess maybe as a business analyst, because I'm not like a coding person, so I think I would not be like a developer, but I'm interested in kind of like translating the technical concepts to the business people. So I think maybe a business analyst, and also probably a project manager. I'm not sure.
Cool. Good to think. All good possibilities.